Hey YouTube, welcome to the first Marvel Cinematic Universe review. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm basically telling you guys, about the Marvel movies. I'm reviewing them pretty in depth, so they're going to be very long. And we're basically going to go through each of the movies and TV shows, from Iron Man to Agent Carter. Eventually I will do Daredevil, but I just have to wait and see for that one. So this is basically the build-up towards Age of Ultron. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to get through. In this video, we're just discussing some interesting elements that I wanted to talk about before I started the reviews. One of the most interesting aspects of what Marvel Studios is doing is Marvel Studios is basically establishing a film universe, which is the first of its kind, really. I mean, we have had previous film universes, but nothing to this scale. So what Marvel Studios is trying to establish is very similar to how Marvel Comics was first conceived. The Marvel Comics attempted to create a universe where people could identify with their characters, to create realistic people that build a universe around that. And it's led to one of the best comic book universes in all the fiction, and Marvel Studios is really replicating that in these movies. The great thing about these movies is how they've helped the comic book community. These movies are having a huge impact on the development of comics. Certainly within Marvel, certainly within the Marvel brand. The success of Marvel's really helping the Marvel comic universe really shine. Now, say what you will about that, I think it's giving an audience an understanding of why comic book people love this universe so much. So let me talk about some of the history of how Marvel Studios came to be, and why we're not seeing characters like X-Men and Fantastic Four. And whilst I talk about this, I'm also going to talk about the Marvel Studios and Sony partnership, and why that is such a major element for this universe. I'm going to begin now by just telling you about my own history with the Marvel Studios films, and why I relate to them so much. So in 2008, I began my Marvel journey, and this was way before I began reading comics. I remember actually going to see Iron Man with a very close friend, and I, I just remember just how great the movie was, how Iron Man really gave me a sense of interest in this character, which I would have normally have just waved off. A character I was very familiar with. Comic book movies always used to be done in trilogies, and then it would be rebooted. And Iron Man really presented a new, fresh idea for comic book movies, and that is one of, and we are now seeing such a success with these movies, and that everyone is enjoying these movies as well. And just re-watching them again, I've really learned a lot about how this, how the movies were created, and it's really interesting. And then to have them be a success. Now, obviously in the beginning there were a few films that were like, eh. And even in Phase 2 you do have that kind of moments with Marvel Studios. But you are getting content that is so good and so different to anything else coming out right now that it's very, very interesting. So recently, a startling deal was made between two studios, Marvel Studios and Sony, over the rights of Spider-Man. And the reason why this is such big news for everyone who doesn't know is because it's what it will do for both the character of Spider-Man and Marvel Studios as a whole. Personally, I was really surprised that Sony would allow Marvel Studios to do what they did. Obviously Sony, in the last couple of years haven't really done Spider-Man justice. So it should be very interesting to see what Marvel does with the Spider-Man character. But how did Spider-Man go to Sony? How did X-Men and Fantastic Four go to 20th Century Fox? And that answer is really interesting, and I don't think anyone could have said at the time that Marvel was going to have all this success. Because I think if they knew that they were going to have really successful movies, they wouldn't have sold the rights to their character. So basically what happened is, Marvel began to expand on various media and different forms of entertainment. And this basically led to the Spider-Man TV shows, the 90s X-Men, the X-Men films, Blade. It basically led to a series of movies coming out. However, unfortunately, in 1997, Marvel began to fall into bankruptcy. And this forced Marvel to have to make a very difficult decision in order to keep their brand existing. This basically led to them having to sell the rights to certain characters. But whilst all of that was going on, we have a man called Avi Arad, who was a former head person for Toy Biz that was creating the action figures. Well, he eventually became the president of Marvel Entertainment, which includes the film division. And thanks to him, we got movies like Bryan Singer's X-Men films, Blade, Raimi's Spider-Man films, Fantastic Four, Daredevil, and we basically began getting all of these Marvel films. But the difference between them were these films weren't connected in any way. And that's really where where Marvel really began to shine. Because when Marvel eventually formed Marvel Studios and Avi Arad stepped down as the president of Marvel Entertainment, Kevin Feige then took over the reins and basically introduced the really interesting concept of what would happen if you were to bring, a group of superheroes and put them together in a cohesive universe. And that's exactly what he did. Now, bringing this back into why it's so amazing that Marvel and Sony have decided to work together is because, firstly, it's amazing that two studios can actually sit down and actually even discuss the possibility of another property, being shared in such a way. It's a lot of balls in Marvel Studios' court, and it takes a company, it takes studios that, a lot of guts has been put into forming this deal that's been made, that has now allowed Spider-Man to re-enter the Marvel Studios. Now, Spider-Man isn't fully integrated into Marvel, but it's really good to see the character actually be a part of that universe. It'll be interesting to see moving forward if the deal was a good thing, or whether it was a bad thing, and what it will mean moving forward. Because we could, maybe one day, we don't know, maybe see Fantastic Four be integrated into Marvel Studios, or even the X-Men, although the X-Men are a bit of a blip from the position that 20th Century Fox isn't exactly going to get rid of the X-Men anytime soon. They might get rid of Fantastic Four if this movie bombs, the new Fantastic Four movie bombs, you can bet your bottom dollar that either something very similar to what's going on between Sony and Marvel now will happen, or Fantastic Four will be reintegrated back into Marvel. Just a few closing thoughts before I sign off here. Obviously, these videos are going to be very, very long. I do consider myself a Marvel fan. And it's definitely thanks to these movies that's really got me excited about what Marvel's doing. And it should be really interesting to see what happens with what DC's doing. Because as soon as DC starts entering this comic book age, it should be really interesting to see if fans will divide themselves between Marvel or DC, or whether both universes continue to hold out. I just have to give you guys a disclaimer, because throughout these reviews I might say something that you might not like. For example, I say a lot of stuff about Incredible Hulk. I'm trying to give you guys an honest take of the film. And some of it is both a personal dislike, and some of it is just what's bad about the film. And I don't hate the Marvel movies. That's not the purpose of these films. That's not the purpose of these reviews. The purpose is to give you guys a retrospective, so that when you guys go watch Avengers Age of Ultron, you guys have the review, and basically you have the wider continuity and how that movie built onto another, and how all of these movies have led into this new movie. So I hope you enjoy yourselves. I know I definitely have enjoyed doing these reviews. And yeah, I shall see you all in Iron Man. Bye.